Norman, Andrew, I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak with the team this morning, and I'd also like to recognize Jonda for your help in coordinating. As some may know, San Antonio, Texas, where I'm located, has had a pretty tough go at it the last couple of days. So I feel truly blessed to be able to be here with everyone today, and would like to share some perspectives on my journey and what Black History Month means to me. So I think to really understand Black History Month, there's three pieces of it that are important to understand. And one is, what is it? It's really a celebration of the achievements of African American people. And that's pretty straightforward. But there's another piece, which is why. Why do we celebrate Black history? Why did it get started? Why is it important that we celebrate it now? And I like to take some time every February to really ponder that question, to understand its relevance and what it means in the broader context of history. And the third piece, and Norman, I didn't realize you were going to do such a great setup for this talk this morning, but it's really around the action. And it's really around what can I do and what's my role in the story of Black history broadly. And I believe wholeheartedly that we all have a role to play in that. But to understand Black history, I think it's really important that we really start with the basis of history and what is history. And so I underlined the two parts of the word history, which the first part is his and the other part is story. And that leads to really this conversation around who's telling the story and whose narrative is it. What I've come to appreciate over the years is that we all bring a different perspective to the conversation. We can all look at the same set of events and draw different sets of conclusions. And the beauty of history and understanding history is really being able to step in each other's shoes, to be able to spend a moment looking at how we view each other through each other's lenses, without bias, without judgment, just coming to the point of understanding. And I'll talk a little bit later about this concept of empathy, but really that's the basis of this understanding and really provides the ground for which we can reconcile and which we can find a way forward with a shared purpose and mission. And so that's kind of my framework for how I think about Black History Month and how it's grounded in history and where we go from there. So what is Black history? This is a picture of Carter G. Woodson, who is known as the father of Black history. So Woodson actually created this celebration of the accomplishments of African Americans because he saw that there was something missing. And just so from a timing standpoint, he really started his post-educational career in the early 1900s. And so just so you're grounded in where it is. But he felt the need to identify a time and create publications to celebrate African Americans specifically. And he described the environment as such that African Americans were overlooked, ignored, and suppressed by the writers of histories and the teachers that use them. So I'd like to say that again. He was operating in an environment where African Americans felt overlooked, ignored, and suppressed by the writers of history. Some of those words are words that we hear today in descriptions of African American experiences in different environments. And so we are many, many years later, but some of these same challenges still exist. So while the month is a month for celebration and for highlighting the great achievements, I think it's really important that we do take a moment to recognize the long history of prejudice, of racial injustice, of racism, and how that's shaped the experience of all of us in this country historically. And so it's a celebration, but it's also an acknowledgement of the pathway that's led us to where we are today. What I really appreciate and love about Woodson is his quote at the top, which is really about hope and inspiration. So despite all the challenges that we face, he's calling out the fact that there is a way and a pathway to a better future. And I wholeheartedly believe that and commend Southwire, your leadership team, and each of you for being part of that journey towards making our environment better. So I'd like to start off with, I like to interact. I unfortunately can't see everyone. I can't be in the room with you. Would love to have that opportunity even more so. But if you can take a moment to stop and think about a time when you felt ignored, overlooked, or suppressed, whether it be by a boss, maybe a parent, maybe your spouse. And it doesn't have to be something major, but just take a moment and see if you can find at some point in your life where you experience one of those feelings. Have your moment? Okay. Well, that's your connection. That's your connection to Black History Month. That's your connection to the feeling, to the intention of Woodson. He was trying to call attention to what that felt like in hopes that if we can all identify with that feeling, that we would be motivated to take action in how we move forward. The next part is change, right? How do we step up? How do we take action? And I would change here brave men to brave people, because it does require courage to step out and make change. The journey towards equity and inclusion is a long one. The story really starts 400 years ago, at least here in the US, over 400 years ago when the first slaves were brought to the colonies. About 100 years ago, Woodson started Negro History Week, which is the genesis, are oftentimes pointed to as the origin of Black History Month. And so again, that was intended to call attention to the contributions. And it took 50 years for us as a country to recognize February as Black History Month. And we're 45 years later from that point. So this is the 45th anniversary of Black History Month. And there's still a lot of work to do. And again, commend the leadership, the team, and each of you for being part of that. But we still have a lot of work. 400 years and turning and shifting thinking, becoming a better society takes a lot of work. It requires each of us every day to get up and commit and recommit to making a difference. And I am a personal believer that only really happens when we work together. It requires us collectively each day in each interaction, showing up, being brave and committed to making a difference and to making not only our work environments, but our home environments as inclusive as possible. I'll take a brief moment. Jonda or Andrew, are there any questions so far? I don't want to go too far down the pathway if there's anything that's come up that's burning.
No questions yet, Jason. Okay.
So please don't be shy. I really enjoy questions. So a little bit about my story and where I am. I'm a person of faith, and I'm also a person of privilege. The fact that I'm able to be here with you today, despite the challenges of the environment, is a reminder to me of the privilege that I enjoy and that I've been the benefactor on. So I realize that my quote unquote success is really built on the shoulders of many people who made huge sacrifices in order to enable me to continue to push the ball forward. History, again, it's a continuum. I'm at a point in time in that continuum, recognizing what's been done before, with an eye also to what are we trying to build and where are we trying to get to. So I've been able to take my experiences in the corporate world and start my own firm and build it on principles that are important to me, and be able to show up again each day in my interactions with people, building a legacy for the future, and not only for my family and for my kids, but broadly around providing access to business ownership as wealth creation vehicles, where it's not just a tool that can be used by a few, and it's not for everyone, but for those where it makes sense, everybody has at least a chance to look at it and evaluate whether or not it works for them. And again, the eye is for how do we create wealth broadly and help close that gap. So the 400 years of, at least relevant to the African American community, the 400 years of challenge that's been faced that we're still working through in this country has created a huge gap in wealth. And I see myself playing a role in helping to close that gap. And that gets me really, really excited about making a difference, about getting up every day, impacting lives and changing lives. And personally, diversity, equity, inclusion is a key part of how I deliver those results. So I'd like to spend just a few moments talking to you about things that I've learned in this journey over the last 5 years, and how diversity, equity, and inclusion have played into that, and how it shows up in how I interact with my employees and my team members, how it shows up in how I interact with partners, as well as with clients. And what I'm confident of is that it leads to better results. And for me, the process really starts around this concept of empathy. And this picture here at the top of the beer with the fox, for those who know Brene Brown, I'm a huge fan. She has a YouTube video on the power of empathy. And it's really being able to sit with a person where they're at, acknowledging their truth. And I find that this, in terms of building trust with people at any level, is hugely important, to be able to sit down and truly be able to identify and connect with the experience, similar to the exercise that we did earlier, is really the key and the cornerstone of building a person-to-person connection. And really, that's where we get the most out of each other. That's where we're able to push our teams to achieve the best results. That's when we're able to really acknowledge the shortcomings and focus on what do we do to move forward. The next piece here is showing gratitude. And it's a piece that is really, to me, another cornerstone for how to show up. Do we really value the contributions that people make? Do we really recognize that we aren't able to do it on our own, and that we can't get there without the support of others? And the principle of gratitude, I found, is proven to be critical in many, many interactions. I'm an avid learner. I show up every conversation assuming that I don't know everything, assuming that I'm not the sole holder of the truth. And the purpose of the interaction is really to uncover those pieces that I don't know. Where are my blind spots? What more can I glean? And even if it's just a better understanding of someone else's perspective. And again, I'm going to keep inviting the questions, but it's critical to create space where people feel as though they have a voice, where that their voice can be heard, where that they won't be judged. There are quote unquote no stupid questions, but we're all coming at whatever the results that we're trying to achieve from the same perspective. So we're all at the table working together for a common goal. And we have to hold ourselves accountable. And so the pledge, it's amazing tool for accountability. When we step in front of an audience publicly saying that this is what we're committing to, and we all know that we're in that together, that accountability is critical to continue to build the trust and reinforcing the trust, and also to achieving the results. And the last piece is embracing conflict. So it's messy. This process, whether it be in our workplace, whether it be in our personal interactions, as we think about these tough, challenging problems, we're not always going to line up and agree. And that's the reality of the situation. I heard a really great quote though. So, can we show up and disagree without being disloyal? So again, I'll say that again. When we don't agree, when there's conflict, can we show up and disagree without being disloyal? So it doesn't mean that we're going to see eye to eye, or that we're going to always hold the same points of view. But we're going to understand that we're in this journey together, similar to the bear and the fox. And we're going to strive, despite where the differences are, to remain in connection, to remain in community, to remain connected in the work that we do to pushing things forward. And so I would like to issue a call to action. And so what's one thing, in addition to the pledge, that I would encourage each of you to take? And again, I had no idea that was coming, so this has been a wonderful setup. But what is one action that you can take this Black History Month to ensure that your world, your sphere of influence, the people that you come in contact with, are experiencing a more diverse, equitable, and inclusive environment? And so these may be some ideas or some thought starters of how you can go about doing that. They've worked for me. And again, as the leader of my organization, I have the opportunity to set these up as core principles. And these show up in how I interact with everyone. and encourage you to think of where these fit for you or others that might resonate as well. Wish you the best of luck. Thank you for your time and attention this afternoon, and would like to open the floor for any questions.
Do we have any questions coming through chat?
I see one here from Cisco. Do you see pain as intrusion in our lives or an essential element in shaping our lives to grow to our ultimate calling? Cisco, so pain is inevitable. Those who haven't felt it, it comes at some point. And I firmly believe that growth comes through pain and being uncomfortable. And so there are different types of pain. And so it's what do we do in that space? And so having support is critically important, so such that we're not crushed, right? So pressure, strain, stress, pain can cause us to grow, but it's really creating the space, the environment, being vulnerable, and really being able to develop ourselves with the support of others to be able to achieve what it is that we're called to achieve. But I don't believe that pain is avoidable. I think that if we're honest, we may suppress or not acknowledge the pain that we felt, which is different than the pain not being there. But fully embracing that and empowering ourselves to move forward become important pieces to being the full people that we can possibly be.
We have another question. Jason says, what's an example of being disloyal?
So being disloyal would be telling someone that you have a point of view in conversation with them, and then in a conversation with someone else, sharing a different point of view. So it's a conflict avoidance. So rather than us have a direct conversation on how we resolve an issue, you maybe placate the person in the moment, and then you share your true feelings. And this happens in lots of different environments, lots of different contexts, and at lots of different scales. But showing up each day saying, hey, we have trust and we can be honest with each other is hugely important. So the truth that I tell you is the truth that I tell everyone else. And so that's being able to disagree and continuing to be loyal to the relationship. These are great questions. All right, well, I'm going to throw up one last slide, and I believe Andrew and Jonda will be able to send you my information. I'm always happy to have a conversation on this. Again, it's something I'm very passionate about. Broadly, diversity, equity, inclusion, business ownership. I spent quite a number of years in corporate environment. And so even understanding how to navigate that, I've had a former boss ask me, do I believe that I, as an African-American man, have the same opportunities to succeed in a company? I've had some very interesting conversations, again, in that spirit of being loyal and disagreeing or agreeing, as the case may be. So always happy to have that conversation. Please feel free to use me as a resource. If I can be of support to you or anyone in the team, happy to do so.
Jason, thank you very much. Very, very thought-provoking, inspirational. And I know, I don't think the folks know in San Antonio what you're dealing with personally to be with us 3 days without power and water. And we really, really appreciate insights and helping us to live and lead more inclusively. So thank you so much for being with us. Absolutely.
It was my pleasure, Norman. And thank you for the opportunity to be here, and keep up the great work with the team. I'm excited to see the continued great progress.
Thank you. Thank you.